You're listening to the New Dominion podcast, where we engage in curious and faith-filled conversations about stewarding our health and community with others. I'm Kirsten Hansen. I am a functional nutrition practitioner in St. Louis, here with my friends and co-hosts, Abby Keene, who is a doctor of chiropractic and also a functional nutritionist, and then Taylor Keene, her husband, who is a licensed professional counselor in St. Louis. We're so glad you're here. Let's get started.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
afternoon. Good evening, wherever you are.
Good day. Good day.
That's Taylor's expression. Good day, folks.
I'm not Australian, but gosh, it'd be cool to be Australian. So
Today we are talking about community, and the title of this episode is called The Hello Law.
Darn right it is.
woo.
Well, that didn't sound very excited.
It's not
Taylor.
my favorite time. I don't like the hello law as much as you do, Abby. You know this.
Abby, the Hello Law is something that you have established and decreed as a law. So I think it would only be appropriate for you to tell us what it is.
Well, considering I am not in the legislature, this has not been decreed as a law. But if I were, I discovered this idea in my 20s, early 20s, and my extroverted self. We decided that if I were, you dream like, oh, if I'm going to be president, if I were in charge, if I could change things, I would create the Hello Law. And so the Hello Law is when you would just make sure that in those spaces of life where it's just you and like one other person, like elevators, so awkward. You would just by law have to look at that person and say, hi. That's it. It doesn't have to be more than that. We're not looking for huge conversations, but like, you go to the movie with a friend, there's like one other couple in the entire theater, and like you walk in, like just say hi. Hey y'all, excited to see the movie. Like could we just go? I'm from a small town. Maybe it's that I just like the small town feel of like you always smile and wave. And maybe it's just small town Ohio that does that. I feel like the Midwest does that pretty well. When I've talked to my friends from New York, New Jersey, they're like, yeah, no, you don't do that. 'Cause
Florida, you
know
don't
what
do that because, most of the people are from New York and New Jersey.
are in Florida. So the Hello Law just, it's just a space to springboard into, basically community. I wouldn't have said those words when I was 22. I think it was just to generate a little bit of sense of belonging. And also the other thought behind it was that like, if I was at a grocery store and I was checking out as me and like a couple other people, right? And I just say hi instead of pretending I'm really interested in People magazine. And I just actually look at the person next to me and say, hey, how's it going? If I were to leave into the dark night in a dark parking lot and something were to happen where someone was like trying to attack me at my car, that person would be more susceptible, more motivated to come help me because they had an interaction with me. And they were like, oh, I just talked to that girl. Like, we got to go help versus maybe not. I don't know. But these are things I thought about in my early 20s of like, how do we get more connected? So the Hello Law was developed, and much to Taylor's chagrin and many others, there's
No.
not a whole lot of people who love this idea.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not against saying hi to people in elevators or talking to people with small talk. But I think you've modified this over the years, because initially I felt like it was like you walk down the aisles of the grocery store and you're saying every time you make eye contact with somebody, it's a hello. And I'm like, good Lord, I'll never get anything done. Like I will be trapped in conversations at all points. And like sometimes I just want to get in and get out. And I don't want to talk to people. I just want to keep the errands churning. Right. But so that.
Fair. I get that.
And so I'm also introverted, so I don't really always want to have a conversation with everybody. But being a counselor for 12-ish years, I've kind of learned that I just can have small talk conversations, and it's okay. It's okay.
I know. Talking about the weather multiple times a day can get old really fast. But the whole purpose is just to connect. That's it. And that's why we named it for today's episode. Because We're talking about connection.
Community connection.
Yeah. Co-regulation.
Oh,
So growing up in the South, the majority of my life was growing up in the South. I think people say hello a lot. And the question is always like, hey, how are you? And that used to drive me crazy because I was thinking, I want to take that question serious. Like, hi, that's kind. I like saying hi. I like that you just said hi to me. But the like, hey, how are you? I perceived a lot of that as not genuine and not a genuine ask or curiosity of how am I doing, and not always an invitation into a relationship, more of just a quick,
it's polite. It's the
yeah,
Southern polite way to show that you're seeing people, but not actually wanting to take the time to go deeply.
yeah,
I mean, being from the South as well, like there's a space of like, yeah, Southern hospitality is amazing, but it isn't, just always connecting. There's a facade to it sometimes that can be a little
yeah,
bit disingenuous, and so, yeah, like I think there's a space of like I've learned to just also really not like that question, but it's also the question I ask every client, almost as a sociological test, because it's interesting to see what they say. Like seriously, as a counselor, and I'm like, hey, how are things going? How are you? And they're like, great, things are fine. Yeah, like really going. Okay. 20 minutes later, they're sobbing because everything's falling apart. I'm like, what happened to great and fine? Like, can we
Mm-hmm.
just like acknowledge how we actually are
yeah.
to a degree,
Well, and
or at least not like pretend, right?
yeah. But I think that is our culture
Mm-hmm.
here in the United States of like, we kind of talked about this before, Kirsten, but like, there are definitely like, how'd you call it? Like spheres or
Oh
circles
yeah, like tiers of
of
relationship.
years of relationships. And so, like I say hi to my neighbors, but we don't have a super close relationship yet. Maybe that will develop since we just moved to the neighborhood. My male lady at the office is the same at my house. So I get to have more conversations with her. And now I know she's getting ready to retire, right? Like, but then you grow deeper, like, someone that I meet at church or someone in my small group or someone in my family, I'm going to go deeper and have deeper conversations. But it's hard to break the like, hey, how's it, like, I'm a, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? People come in the office, hey, how's it going? And I don't know, maybe it's just me and my assuming, but I feel like when someone says, hey, how's it going? I know they don't mean, how are you? Like, I know they don't want it all, right? But if someone stops and looks at me and says, how's things been? How's life been for you guys lately? Then I feel invited to be like, well, let me tell you, right? Like maybe not so good, or maybe it's been great. But I think there are different ways that we express ourselves in community with others that like kind of says, I'm welcoming whatever you have, or I'm not.
Do you feel like you want all of the different tiers of relationship?
Acquaintance level.
Yeah, acquaintance and then friends and then closer, deeper friends,
I
friendships or
do.
closer family relationships.
I do for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I
I
mean,
think we all long to be close and known and seen and like available to kind of have a reciprocal relationship with people like that, where it's not just one way. And so, but not everybody's safe to go into that inner sanctum and the inner circle. You have to kind of be discerning about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
right. But I mean, like the superficial acquaintance level, like I love going to Trader Joe's because there's a couple people that I've known there for a decade who've been working who
I've seen our
I give a
kids
hug.
grow up. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I've given a ride home. Like saw them at the bus stop and like, hey, I got nothing to do. Let's ride down the street together and I'll take you to the next, like whatever. And I love that. And again, maybe that's just because I grew up in a small town and that's my bend. I don't know. I think those little superficial relationships make the world a safer place, especially in today when our social media creates this really diversive, like if I pause on one political thing, then all I'm going to get is that. And then all we see are these extremes. When I can have a conversation with people of multiple ethnicities, just smiling, having like not talking about these like very polarizing topics, I'm like, the world is safe. It is good. And I think that's really, really important for our health since we're on this podcast, that's why we're talking about it, our health, not just our emotional health, but our physical health and how we get through our day to day.
I'm thinking about it and I'm picturing like a plate of food and the deeper relationships being the meat and these acquaintance level relationships or the people who are sprinkled in here and there being like the spices and the herbs or different things that make it just more flavorful too.
That's fun. Who was it? Was that a made for people thing too? The snacks? What was the snack thing? That oh yes, I think it was in Made for People. There's a book by Justin Whitmel Early. Everybody, we love this book. You might as well go out and buy it right now. But I'm pretty sure it was in that book that he mentions relationships as there are like good meals and there are snacks.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I'm not going to pull that out because obviously it's not really running through my head strongly, but you should just go get the book because we'll probably reference it more today, today's podcast.
Yeah.
High probability.
Why doesn't the hello law work?
Well, because I haven't turned it into law yet. So that's hard. I mean, let's just be honest. Nobody else knows about it except the three of us right now.
That's not true. You've shared the quote unquote gospel of the hello law for almost our entire relationship. Like
That's true. I mean, honestly, I live it out. I mean, I am pretty much expert that says hi to everybody when I walk.
And I think I don't think it's about not working or working. I think it's just a guiding principle. So law might be the right word. It might just be like, this is, just a leading principle to kind of how I navigate relationships, how I navigate community, how I navigate being in relationship to others and myself. Like
there's like the butterfly effect. There could be the hello effect.
The hello effect.
Well, if they combine.
Well, and I think even the creation of it, like that, the reason that we say hi to each other and the reason that you want like your heart behind this idea is the idea, butterfly effect, hello effect, law.
Dominoes. What else we got?
It is the desire for connection with other people, which we are made for.
Well, and I think like I alluded to in the example of someone like attacking me and hoping someone, we are seen when people say hello to us. Mm-hmm. We're like made, we come on the scene, like that idea of dominion and like showing up happens when other people see us. I mean, and that's one thing we've talked about this, Kirsten, as females, like when we are on our own or traveling on our own or doing something, like if we see, like what I've taught my girls is if you're alone and you see a man like approaching you, you look them in the eye and you say hello. Like you want to show up and you want to let them know that you see them and you recognize them. And I don't know if that's maybe some police officer could tell me yes or no if that's a good idea. But like, I think that space of connection, it brings us back into our humanness and just what we're made for. And I think it softens people's hearts. And so there's multiple kind of aspects of that, of why I like it so much.
Why do we need other people?
That's a good question. I mean, biblically, it says that we were made for each other, right? But it's interesting when you look at the neuroscience of it also backs up that, you taking God out of the equation, we still acknowledge that we cannot survive alone. Like neuroses and psychotic breaks happen in isolation, right? Babies die when they don't have connection with a caregiver, not just because they can't eat, but because they also are isolated. Like you can feed them a bottle, but they don't actually have face-to-face, brain-to-brain connection. They don't have purpose, right? Their brain doesn't grow, right? And so there's a big part of that. So
I feel like that's a good time to start talking about what is co-regulation.
Oh, that's a good point. You guys are going to have to maybe keep me on the rails here because I can go for a long time into many rabbit trails with this. So, I mean,
well, think about our listeners.
I have a thing. I'm just saying, if I go too far, I'd just be like, man, Taylor, stop. But like, if we just kind of to piggyback on what I just said about the babies, like there are two things that cause your brain to grow, right? It's the DNA that you've been given, and then it's relational interaction. It's connecting, right? And that's why moms and dads getting in their baby's face and oodling and cuddling and getting close is actually growing that baby's brain, right? And so let's just talk about co-regulation. We receive information in multiple different ways in our nervous system from our environment outside of us. We have information of what's happening inside of us. And then we have information of what's happening between us. And the environment is more context. The relation is a lot more. And so if you think about co-regulation is just simply how we receive and send signals of safety. Right now, even though we're looking at each other on a screen, our right brains are in eye contact, connecting to another right brain, and we're going, oh, kind face, smiling face. Oh, they must like me, or I haven't done anything wrong, or it's safe, kind of thing. And so we're always kind of on this tension line. And I give credit to Deb Dana on this, who is a pretty well-renowned polyvagal theorist, is that we have two things happening at the same time. We are longing to connect, our need for people, but we're also looking to protect ourselves and be safe. And so that's all happening at the same time. Okay, something happened with my audio right there. I don't know what happened. So, and then
Repeat that maybe. Just
yes,
say it again.
so we have this tension line of like longing to connect, innately to be with other people, and then we have a sense of protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves safe that are happening as we are interpersonally engaging. And so if you think about the hello law, when I walk up and we pass each other and I say hi, we make eye contact, there could be a sense, if my history has a trauma origin, that that's not safe for me, right? Or it could be safe for the other person, but I'm not receiving that same message. And so it can reinforce these histories of what we have, or it can create a new opportunity if it's safe. Now, there's a whole lot of things here about like our nervous system cannot just be safe by itself. Like we can't create safety in ourselves. And that's kind of going to be maybe shocking to people. Like, what are you talking about? I can self-soothe. Okay, great. How'd you learn to do that? Let's go back to babies. Let's go back to kids. You learn to self-soothe by first connecting and being taught what regulation looks like. And so let's also say that like you can't do that when you're in an activated state. And so if I'm sympathetically charged, if I'm just stressed and running and I come in and I'm trying to now sit down with a client and they're trying to tell me something deep, I cannot create a safe space for them because my nervous system's not grounded. And my only job is to be grounding. So I'm really screwing the whole thing up at that point. And so safety is like an autonomic experience that comes into being that happens for us, when we are in the right environment, when we feel like we can connect to somebody that's safe, that can help us point that direction, that we don't feel threatened in any way, And so we can get really far into this, but the trauma piece of this really comes in because like there's a lot of people that can't get to a settled state because their trauma story is like, well, when I'm still, I'm unsafe. But you can't.
Yeah.
So you can hear the rabbit trails that can just really branch off quickly here. But that's kind of where we are.
I would love to there was a lot there.
Yep.
Thank you for defining that so well. No, you defined it really well. The thing I thought about just in light of the hello law and something I've learned in my extrovertedness through the years is that I cannot take how people receive my hello personal. Like just because I'm feeling grounded and I'm out smiling and saying hi to someone or coming toward a close friend or someone that I know well at church and I go to them and say, hi, how's it going? Or I actually stop and say, how have things been? How are you guys? And they don't respond the way I anticipate. I think what you just said of, just because someone's coming toward trying to co-regulate, if someone else has trauma or just isn't regulated at the time, maybe they just got in a fight with their husband on the way to church and can't receive, like, I don't need to be offended by their lack of response. It doesn't mean it's me. It could just mean that they are struggling and they don't feel safe to share right now. And that's okay. And maybe that's just called giving people the benefit of the doubt. We use that a lot,
Assuming the
but
best.
assuming the best and also staying grounded in Christ and my identity there, knowing that like I'm okay. And hopefully we have a good enough relationship that that person could come to me if there was something wrong and say, "Hey, I wasn't really comfortable talking with you in the middle of the lobby at church because that text you sent this week really kind of, you know, peeved me off or whatever." Just the space of peeved. Yeah, it's a peeved. Anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but it just made me think of that when you said they might not receive it or be able to physically.
Yeah. Taylor, you can veto this question if you want to, but
Ooh, power.
my question when you were explaining co-regulation and how you have to be in a safe and secure place in yourself to help someone co-regulate is what do you like if you were to go into a counseling session or be in an interaction with your kids
You need
and
to bring them up, huh? Okay, that's fair.
if you were to go into an interaction like that where you were in the spot of need of somebody else needing you to co-regulate them, but you didn't feel safe and secure in yourself, you felt activated, what do you do?
Ooh, that's a good question, Kirsten. Let me start by one thing because I think this might help indicate something. Trauma isn't the event that happens to us; it's how we experience the event inside us. And so, like, there's like it's how my system responds to the stimulus, and it's when my system can't process that stimulus. That's where a traumatic thing happens to the system. Okay, that's when we hold trauma in our body. And so I wanted to clarify that because I think I'm a counselor, but I'm not immune to trauma. I'm not
Mhm.
immune to being activated. Doing this job, and I think God has built me maybe in a way for it specifically, but you learn it also. And Kirsten, I know you have a counseling degree, so you've done this on some degree, but like I have to compartmentalize. I really have to compartmentalize. I have to be, I know that Abby, you and I talk about how women and you in particular can think on like 8 different levels at once. If I ask you what you're thinking about, you're like, on which level? And I'm like, my God, that sounds exhausting. And you're like, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, nothing. And you're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, because I'm just this. Like, but in the room, in the counseling room, I am thinking on 3 to 4 maybe 5 different levels or perspectives at once. It's the direct interaction. It's how I'm receiving them. It's how letting myself be seen by them. What am I showing? And then, also kind of diagnostically going, what the heck is that? Whoa, what? Oh, their face, their body, what's happening? And so like, there's a lot of things happening at once that I'm not paying attention to now, but in the early days was exhausting because my
Mm.
brain didn't know how to do it. So to answer it maybe more succinctly, I pray, I give it to God, and I say, this is not about me, this is not about my stuff, but help me show up for them because it's about the work for them. And but I also counsel in a way where I have to be in relationship to people because like what's the point otherwise? Like if I'm just going to be a stoic guy that hides behind my pad and grunts and ask a question occasionally, like that's not going to help anybody because the healing comes in relationship. It comes in connection. It comes in actually having some reciprocity of vulnerability. Like I'm not sharing all of my story, but my clients who have been with me long enough, they know about me. They know about my family. They know coming back from holidays, they'll ask you how did it go when you went to see your parents or to see your in-laws or when you're on vacation, how did it go? They ask questions because they're curious because it's a relationship. So
Mhm.
that also kind of think about the arcs and the rings of relationship. Where do my clients exist on that? I don't know. I think it's a different set of rings actually because I can't always hold them in my actual world.
What would you say, Taylor, then? Because that, I mean, that was very descriptive. It also seems like a lot. Like for someone who's a client of yours or a client of ours who's going to be listening to this podcast and they're like, okay, great. Like you alluded to how exhausting it was for you to do that at the
Yeah,
beginning
with
of
my 4
being.
clients, so it was okay. I had lots of time.
But you think about someone who, a mom of toddlers running around, a married couple who's been in patterns for years and may not have had this emotional training. Like, what would be some practical ways that they could start this kind of awareness or conversation? I mean, obviously, you said pray and recognize. I mean, but
We can just go ahead and add that to a default list of like whatever to do
always
whenever, just pray. I think like if we're talking about family relationships, whether it's spousal relationships or parents to kids, or if I have teenage clients listening to this talking about their parents or whatever it is, like there's a space here of like you're because of your story, because of your trauma experience, because of your previous relationships, like you have your brain predisposed to looking for things that have been dangerous in the past. And then, so it's just as a rough example that didn't really happen, but if in my relationship with my mom, and I knew that when she arched her eyebrow like that she was mad, and I didn't really kind of pay attention to it. I just knew that like, oh, I need to shut up and like get out of the room, as a kid. But then I grow up with that same knowledge that when people arch their eyebrows, they're mad. That's always true. Now, if I'm married and my wife looks at me with curiosity and arches her eyebrow, and I perceive that as anger, we are in for a whirlwind of a fight because I'm running and shutting down and she's confused as all heck. Like, what had just happened? But now I'm escalated, she's escalated, we're blowing up, right? So if I was going to give practical advice, I would say pay attention to what you're perceiving as opposed to assuming that you know the truth.
What's Brene Brown? What'd she say? The story I'm telling myself right
Yeah.
now
When you did
is,
that, it made me feel this.
yeah.
The story I'm telling myself is when I saw your eyebrow arch, I heard anger, or I felt you were angry with me. And you're like, no, I was confused and I was curious about what you were talking about. And so like you can hear how like it's really easy just to kind of put that fire out when it's like a small little coal. It's like, oh yeah. But like we don't do that because like we think we're right and we don't actually
Well,
check.
and I think that's part of the conversation that the hello law brings in is that it's uncomfortable, right? And that space of, I don't know about y'all, but when I hear things like, say I feel statements, or how does that make you feel, or the story I'm telling, when I feel like I have to kind of I have to interlace these like pre-made sentences into my emotional life, I feel really cheesy and like really weird,
That's why you should do it
right?
when you're not activated. So do it when you're,
Well, true, practice it that way. But also having practiced it, it's like now we do it in our marriage in a way most of the time that is helpful. And we use our own
yeah.
words, right? I'm not using Brene's stuff. I have when I first started because it was the only way I knew how to open that door. And it was just a tool to get the door open. But then you can navigate it and use it in what feels comfortable for you. And so just that space to encourage our listeners of like, it's hard work and uncomfortable, but like being in relationships can be hard. On the flip side, it's not all negative, right? Kirsten, you and I talked yesterday about encouragement and how we have come to a place of like sometimes being really caring and loving and telling people, I really enjoy hanging out with you is hard and awkward. And maybe it's just me, but like Kirsten said that to me the other day of like, put her hand on my arm and said, I really enjoy our time together. And I was like, ugh. Inside, not physically, but inside it like
Kirsten,
hit
are you
me
okay
weird.
with that?
I told her yesterday, but that was like a thing that I realized like that was really sweet
Mhm.
of her to say that. And I, for whatever reason, it was just so straightforward that it kind of knocked me off kilter for a second. And I had to kind of come back online and think, well, why?
Because we
That's
don't know what to do with it afterwards. We don't know how to accept actual compliments. We don't know how to accept that people see us positively because we
right.
often internally are thinking high critique, high judgment, looking for the areas that we do wrong. We don't give ourselves the benefit of the doubt that we might give other people. And when they see us and they compliment us and they even share in vulnerability, which Brene Brown would say is the language of connection. If you and you share that, like you're supposed to say what? Like, oh, thank you. Like I like you too. Like I mean, like it's like what do we do? Like because we don't know how to like respond to authentic affirmation, encouragement, or connection because we don't get it very often. There's not a lot of practice.
Yeah. And even when someone tells us they really appreciate something about us, or they really enjoy, for me to say, I don't, if you just use that example, Abby, for me to say, I really like just hanging out with you, or for, I can think of times that people have said that to me. There's a part of that that hits me being uncomfortable with being seen. Like, oh, this person sees me and they like me. And there's a part of me that really doesn't like myself sometimes, or doesn't like this part of myself, but this person is loving me and liking me in the midst of that. Can I let them like me even when I don't like myself? And what is it like? Like, what if they see something that they then don't like? And there are all those stories that go into the background. And I'm thinking with that and with what you're saying, Taylor, a lot of paying attention to the things that set us off or trigger us, the eyebrows being raised, or the way somebody says something in particular. A lot of that takes self-awareness, and that's hard. It can be hard to see
Absolutely.
yourself, hard to be aware of your own story, hard to have worked through that, and then allow other people also to be present in it, because we've built up walls and ways that we engage and interact with the world to try to keep ourselves safe.
Well, we don't like taking responsibility for things.
Yeah.
We just don't. Like it's like, oh, that whole thing was because of me. And now for men, I think it's higher levels of shame. For women, it's higher levels of not being connected or loved. I think that like those are kind of coming from the same place, but men seem to, at least in my experience, like seem to go to shame more overtly than I think women do. I think women obviously still do with shame, but it's just different. But like we don't know how to take responsibility for our stuff. We don't know how to begin if I'm having an issue with one of you, with Abby or you, Kirsten, like and I'm like, oh, like I feel disconnected. I feel like she doesn't like me or they're mad at me. Like my first responsibility maybe should start with me and be like, well, let me be curious about what I've done, how I've maybe been acting. What have I done, in the sense of like, have I been aloof? Have I been looking at my phone too much? Have I just been in my own little world? Did I come across sharp? Am I not like, so being curious with not judgment, just curious, because these things aren't right or wrong. They just are. If we can come to a place of stop labeling things good and bad and just say, this happened and it hurt, which isn't good, but it can also be turned to good because it can be redeemed.
Yeah.
And then, along that, assuming the best and being curious. So asking questions like what you said, Abby, about the Brene Brown stuff of like, like what did you said this, but like, this is what I'm hearing. What did you mean? Instead of assuming I understand the intent. Right. So I think there's just a lot of like, but if we could balance that out with encouragement, good Lord. Like, so like the number of couples I see where they just don't know how to speak life and they only speak condemnation and judgment. So.
The one thing that we defined yesterday in our conversation, Kirsten, was who are safe people, right? Because why are we talking about the hello? Hello. Like, why are we talking about co-regulation? Like, we were talking about how to steward our health in community with others. So obviously there's the community aspect, but we've talked about safe. We've said that word multiple times today. And I think there's a definition of safe that is healthy and one that we've kind of molded into in some areas of our culture, modern day culture, where it's just kind of used like, well, you're not safe for me, so peace. And there are people that are not safe for you, and you absolutely should not be in that relationship. I get that. But I think there's a lot of times where it takes work to create like a safety with people. So, Taylor, I'm just curious, we didn't share this with you, but what you would think of our definition that we came up with yesterday of like who a safe person is.
Okay.
So we said a safe person allows us to make mistakes, but loves us anyway, and also challenges us to do better. And that could be through encouragement and calling out the goodness, like not shaming you for being on your phone too much and making me feel disconnected from you, but to be like, Taylor, like you're so good at doing blah, 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 and to remind you of who you are when you're not stuck in the loop of your phone, or, just that space of like calling people out, but not just being like, oh, you're on your phone all the time. You're such a loser, you know?
So say it one more time. So there's
Safe people allow us to make mistakes and love us anyway,
Mhm.
but also challenge us to do better.
If the challenge includes honesty of like direct, like, hey, you really stink at doing household chores. Like,
That sounds like our next podcast episode.
oh,
You guys should tune in for the next
oh,
one. You have spinach in your teeth.
oh, but like, so I think if there's an honest directness that can be a place of that, I think it's also like, because again, we're so sensitive about hurting people's feelings. And I know that's been a dynamic in our marriage. I think there's a space of like, you withheld things because you knew that it would put me in a defensive, potentially shame posture. And you didn't want to deal with having to, what you felt like, pull me out. And I think it was a real turning point for us when you named that. And I was like, you're right. like, and like, that's right. I've been, help, like in some sense, holding you captive from allowing you to be expressive with the things that were actually happening for you because of this perception of how I would respond, which was born out of truth and just didn't give me an opportunity to do anything about it. So I think
Yeah.
safe people are also willing to take risks and say the hard thing to give someone the opportunity to do something different.
Mhm.
I think that's also
Yeah.
true. So
Excuse me.
I think safe people also are people who you are to some extent doing life with. I can think of a way that there could be a random, like a teacher or somebody. I'm trying to think of like an elder at my church, a pastor who doesn't really know me could give me feedback and challenge me and be honest and be willing to sit with me once a year and love me even though I have mistakes. And I'm probably not going to see that person who is not involved in my daily life as a very safe person, but someone who I'm interacting with, have proximity to in life, or even like I went horseback riding with some friends over Christmas who I used to live with and haven't talked to in 6 years, but we hopped on horses and went horseback riding, and we touched on maybe some deeper things, sort of, but we also just had a good time together. And I know like my nervous system feels safe with them because of the history and all the positive interactions that I've had with them. And so I don't think safe. I think there's a lot that goes into helping our nervous systems feel safe other than just the challenges. I think the honesty has to be there, the honesty and the vulnerability.
yeah, of course.
But also just the relational capital.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
ability to be with, right? To just sit and not
Yeah.
have to perform, not have to wear a mask, that I can assume that I am accepted as I am and I can accept
Yeah.
them as they are. And we're just not performing anymore. The moment we stop performing, our nervous system settles and we come into, social, interactions and ventral vagal. And that's where healing happens.
Yeah.
That's the
Mhm.
place, right? Because we're honest and true of ourselves. So
It reminds me of when we worked at the New Dominion Boys School and we would have struggles with these boys, that's why they're there. And every time we worked through a problem, whether it was emotionally, whatever it was, we would do some sort of work project that together that we would feel good about. And so there are so many little benches that we built and ways that we made our campsite look better. But as counselors, we never just forced them to do it by themselves. It wasn't like, oh, you messed up. So now you have this project to make everybody else around you feel better. It was like, you struggled, we overcame it together. And now we are going to do something that we can show the rest of the group that we overcame together. And if it was building a bench so that the whole group could utilize it, or cleaning out a tent so that the whole group benefited, it was a way to restore back and make right what had gone wrong.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that quote. Do you have the Made for People quote, the Justin Early quote?
I do, and I have it written down on a piece of paper that I'm going to try to move around very slowly around my microphone so that everybody doesn't hear my paper.
You did a great job.
Justin Early says you cannot experience God the way you were made to until you experience him alongside others.
I just love that quote. It reminds me of, I wrote it down too, the James 5:16. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. I think they just mirror each other, and how without other people, we cannot come out of our shame pits. We cannot let others share our burdens, and we cannot be healed. We can't receive that look back that says, no, you're still loved, you're still safe, you're still cared for. And that heals us, right? Knowing that we're cared for is so healing.
There's so much more that we could talk about.
Yeah, I was say, if we don't wrap it right here, we're going to just talk for another 4 hours, and that's going to be a
I
lot.
still have half a page of notes.
So we need to do a deeper dive on community.
Yeah.
Connection.
But we should wrap it up
relational,
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what?
I was just saying we could talk about relationships and community and connection and all the neuroscience and all the physiological. We can go forever on this topic because there is
And why it's hard, how it's countercultural.
Yep. And it's
Well,
biblical.
stay tuned.
Biblical. So it's good. So
Stay tuned, y'all. Come back
Yeah.
for multiple more episodes on community. Just it might be down the road.
All right. Well, come back and keep listening. Thanks for listening to our podcast, to the New Dominion podcast. I don't remember our outro.
I thought you were really doing a great job.
it looked
Just-
great until you broke character there. So.
Until I broke character. Thanks for listening to the New Dominion podcast. We would appreciate it if you like the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us, and leave us a review, because it would help other people find our podcast and journey with us and with you as you listen. We will be back next time. So come back.
Come back.
Can you enjoy it one more time?
Come back. Come back.
Join us again.
Please come back.